Hello and welcome to The Beat, a news and talk program brought to you by the Center for Community Media at Worcester State University. This introduction has been pre-recorded for future episodes due to the unforeseen circumstances that the pandemic may bring. We hope you enjoy this segment.
First off, I would just like to thank you for joining us on The Beat. If you wouldn't mind, could you quickly tell us your title and position at Worcester State?
Sure. So I'm Heather Treseler, and I'm an associate professor of English at Worcester State, and I'm also the Presidential Fellow for Art, Education, and Community.
Great. So along with being a professor here at Worcester State, you are an accomplished poet and essayist, and recently published your first book of poetry, Partition, early last year. Could you tell us a little bit about this project?
Sure. Thanks for asking about it. I've been working on a full-length, long collection of poetry for a couple of years, and I submitted roughly about a third of the manuscript to a contest in Cork, Ireland, which is actually where my mother's family is from, just kind of a little bit on a whim, and was surprised and delighted to find out that the manuscript had won this book prize. So I worked with the editors, and it came out, I think, just about a week before COVID shut down international travel. So not the best of timing, but it's actually received some good press and reviews, and seems to be finding some readers. The book is, well, how to describe a book of poems. The title, Partition, is actually a clinical term, which means childbirth or labor, but metaphorically, it's sort of any birthing process. And the book is kind of about the emergence of an artist and an artistic sensibility in the world, and what that process looks like alongside sort of a young woman's journey into adulthood. So that's maybe the 45-second version of it. But yeah, it's part of a longer manuscript too that I'm hoping to finish this summer.
That's great. Well, congratulations. So like you mentioned, you're the Presidential Fellow for Art, Education, and Community, which involves collaborating with the Worcester Art Museum. Can you just tell our viewers a little bit about the Worcester Art Museum and what some of your responsibilities as Presidential Fellow are?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. So the Worcester Art Museum has, as many people know, over 35,000 works of art in its collections. Not, of course, all are on view all the time, but a significant portion of it is available to all of us. And I think it's really one of Worcester's cultural gems. And the unique partnership that Worcester State has with the museum enables all students, faculty, and staff to essentially visit the museum at any time it's open, for free, just by producing their Worcester State ID. So it's an amazing resource that we have virtually at our back door. And our president, Barry Maloney, was the person who really spearheaded this partnership. And not only can we casually visit anytime we want, but faculty and students have made great use of the museum's holdings and collections and research library to do a number of really innovative research projects and art installations in connection with the museum's holdings. So at this point, and I might be skipping ahead a couple questions on you, about 18 of our 21 academic departments have had sustained use of the museum's holdings and have produced quite an array of innovative projects that we're very proud of. Does that answer your question, Jillian? Or?
It does. I actually, for a class, I had to go visit the museum, and I got in for free, and I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it was gonna. So I would definitely recommend that to anyone else who's thinking about going. But based on what you've learned in your role as Presidential Fellow and your work with the Worcester Art Museum, do you have any exhibit or event recommendations for our viewers?
Sure. So luckily, the museum is now open again. And I think for a lot of us who have been cooped up inside and somewhat isolated during this year of COVID, returning to the museum is certainly a very welcome prospect. And there's all kinds of great stuff happening. Currently, entrance is by time ticket only, just so that the museum can maintain proper capacity limits with COVID. But the visiting hours are still quite generous, and there's a number of exciting exhibits, both there currently, but also coming up in the year ahead. So one thing that I'm very eager to visit is the refurbishing of the Edward Augustus Brackett statue. There was a 1,500-pound statue that was given to the museum by Edward Brackett, who was a 19th century sculptor. And he made this incredible work of a shipwrecked mother and child. And it was on display in the museum for a number of years, but at some point in the 1930s, for reasons unknown, the museum actually retired the sculpture into its basement. So very recently, the museum secured enough funding to basically exhume the statue from its basement and through a very complicated set of maneuvers, get it up through the narrow hallways and across various mezzanines and through various elevators and things, and to install it in the Jepson Idea Lab, where it's being restored, but in a space that's fully visible and accessible to the public. So between now and I think early next year, we have the chance to kind of witness this statue being cleaned and restored to its sort of original beauty. So that kind of takes us behind the scenes into what museum conservationists do in a pretty dynamic and cool way. Some other upcoming exhibits include an exhibit that is timed to coincide with Polar Park's opening this spring, and it's a wonderful exhibit on the baseball jersey, and it's 170 years of display of fashion and sport in American culture. So I think that will be interesting, especially to those of us who enjoy baseball and its cultural accoutrements. Another really interesting exhibit that's coming up in November for those of us who like romantic stories. It's a piece called Love Stories from the National Portrait Gallery in London, and it essentially presents about 450 years of portraiture of one or more lovers, and sort of provides an overview of how love has been imagined by painters for really since the beginning of the modern era. So I think that will be intriguing and engaging for a wide array of audiences. And those are just three of current or upcoming exhibits that I think have fairly broad appeal for all of us.
Yeah, those all definitely sound super interesting, especially the baseball one. I'm a huge sports fan, so I'll definitely have to get over there and see that. But if any of our viewers have never visited the Worcester Art Museum, why do you think they should visit?
I think it's one of Worcester's cultural gems. It's an incredible resource. And I think, during COVID and as we sort of had to submit to all of these various rules and regulations and spend tremendous amounts of time alone or sequestered with just a few people, I think it made all of us realize the extent to which we rely on art and literature and cultural material to kind of feed our souls and our inner lives. And I've had many friends tell me that one of the first things they want to do once they're fully vaccinated is get to a museum, whether it's in Worcester or Boston or New York, because they long for that experience of seeing great art. and the kind of refreshment, inspiration, provocation that happens when you're standing in the presence of a really beautiful or provocative or inspiring work of visual art or sculpture. So, the Worcester Art Museum for years, and even before I occupied this role, was sort of my the place I most liked to go when I wasn't on campus. I would sometimes sneak over there during a lunch break and just spend some time in a single gallery. And it's a wonderful way, I think, to allow the mind to travel and the heart and soul to sort of feel refreshed by something that's outside of our immediate range of experience, but can really extend and deepen what we think and what we feel. So that's my best pitch. It really, in some ways, I think once a person has been there, they're usually quite sold and want to go back and want to bring friends and family back there. I know that whenever I have a guest speaker or someone visiting Worcester, the Worcester Art Museum is always one of the first things I put on their itinerary. It's something that Worcester can be incredibly proud of.
That was a good pitch. Just to conclude the interview, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think that Worcester State students and faculty do a really amazing job of making full use of the museum. And we really want to continue to encourage our students to think of it as part of their campus and as a kind of auxiliary classroom and a space that is open to them and can really further both their education, but also their enjoyment of life. It's when we talk about lifelong learning, I think museums are places where we can find ourselves continually nurtured and inspired in our lives. There's an ethicist, Elaine Scarry, who has theorized that being in the presence of beautiful things actually, among other things, inspires us to be good because beauty has a kind of, has that effect on us. I'm not entirely sure if that's always true, but I'd like to think it is. And beyond inspiring moral behavior, I think it's a place where we return for strength and refreshment and ideas, inspiration.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching this segment of The Beat. Please remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We will see you next time.